I'm using the little fine line things. So it's nice because I've just been squeezing out like a little circle. Hold on here. And you don't have to. I mean, you don't have to mask off the background. I was just looking at it and going, you know what? I'm just going to mask these off. I don't know. Maybe it's better just to scrub them out with a little scrubber. And then there's all the little tiny ones. So I'm just going to take my... Let's put little tiny dots.
That's why I didn't do it in my head, because I wasn't sure how you were going to do it.
I wasn't either, but you can already see some of them are already starting to dry. So that's one good thing about these little, the fine lines, is you just barely...
I just use these little tiny brushes.
Yeah. What's nice about...
disposable brushes?
Yeah. And I do that too, but the fine line makes super nice little tiny circles. And all you have to do is just squeeze it real lightly. And then the vacuum, I guess, just starts pulling out. And then you don't really have to squeeze it. See, it just, as you put it down on the paper, it just starts dropping in. Perfect.
Yeah, these are those disposable fingernail brushes.
Yeah, those are good too. And then you can just barely put any pressure on it, and it will do ones that are just a little tiny bit bigger. So that I'm just kind of putting them randomly and making sure that there's no pattern. So that looks pretty good. I don't think it's going to take long to dry. So one thing I like about the fine line...
I'm watching this, honey.
What?
And I don't know why the fine line doesn't do this, but the Winsor Newton does. But the fine line has got some color in it. So these will dry transparent and bluish. But I've noticed this brand doesn't leave a color mark, whereas if you're using the Winsor Newton where they've got the yellow in it, it will leave a yellow stain on the paper. But the fine line doesn't. I don't know why. And then I think what I'm going to do too is after I get done painting him, then I'll just use the little engraving pen and just add some little drops right on the top, some little snow right on the top of him. So let's see, maybe another couple big, see right there? So I just added a little bit more, squeezed it, and it came out a little bit bigger. Okay, that's probably good. Now see, those little tiny ones there are almost dry. So, okay, I'm going to take this off and I'm going to put it in water. So one thing that's nice about this, you take off the little top and you just drop it into a container of water so that the masking fluid does not dry in the tip. So I should have cleaned this water, and then see, like you can see how the water's dripping out, and that helps clean it out. So that's nice. The fine line is about the only other one I'll use besides the white mask from, what is that, Grafix? Yeah. Okay. Let me move that back. I think we're good there. So, I think I'm going to start with the snow on the bottom there. And let's see. Okay, my palette's all clean. I'm going to use a number 6. I'm going to try not to get too serious about this guy because I just want to do it just real loose, but with a lot of color in the shadows on his little body there. So I think I'm going to, now that this blue is pulled in the middle. Oh gosh, why did I do that? Hold on. I dumped my brush right in that water that I put the masking fluid in. Okay, hopefully it's not in my brush. Okay, so I've got my blue, and that's the red. I'm using the red shade. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference if you decide to use the green shade. And then I'm going to add in red. So I'm going to make this purple, and I'm using the Quin Magenta. Okay, I didn't completely mix it. In fact, I'm almost out of blue. Hang on here. Let's grab some blue. Oh, that has never happened. Some of the carriers came out at the top, that clear liquid. That usually never happens. That was M. Graham. Okay, so I've got a basic purple, and now I'm going to add just a little tiny bit of yellow. And I'm just going to brush it through there, and then I'm going to test it. Okay, it toned down that purple a little bit, so I'm going to try just a little bit more of the yellow. Now let's see what we've got. So I think that that's leaning too... I don't know. I guess let me pull it around, and I think it needs to have more blue. Let's get a little bit more blue in there and see what it does. Actually, that's really pretty so far. That's some beautiful grays. And then I want to make sure that I get different colors of gray. So I've got some that look a little bit redder there. And if I pick up a little bit more yellow and move my brush around, I think that's good. I'm going to just try that. It doesn't need to look exactly like the image I created. I think that's good. And if I want that to lean a little bit more like a brownish gray, I can come over here. Wait, let me rinse my brush. Add a little bit more red there, and now a little bit more yellow, and let's see what we get there. That's a good one. That's a good one for right underneath on the snow. Okay, I think that's good. We're gonna see what this does. I am gonna lighten up my lines though. So you can already see how my masking fluid is already starting to dry. On all the little ones, they're pretty much all dry. There's just a few areas on the big ones that haven't quite dried yet. So it's not like we got to rush or anything. I just want to have fun. It's the end of the year. I'm just going to keep it really loose. Okay, let's lift up these lines a little bit too. Yeah, I was a little heavy-handed there with my pencil lead. Okay. Let's see. This time I think I'm gonna, what do I want to use? I'm gonna use my number 4. I'm not gonna wet this first. I'm just gonna pick up some of my color. See, I think I want more yellow. So I just pulled in some yellow. So now I've rinsed my brush. Now I just have water on it. So I'm just kind of moving the water around, keeping it light. And then I think I'm going to pick up just a little bit over very watery. And I'm going to pick up a little bit from the blue area. And then I'm going to come up in here. Seeing how I'm kind of skipping over the paper a little bit, just with the tip of my brush. That looks good. And then I could come over and I could pick up a little bit more of that purple and drop it in maybe right there. Let's get a little bit more. And okay, I'm rinsing my brush. So I've got a little bit of color, and then I'm just dabbing at it and touching it and moving it around. So this is what I like when I'm painting grays. So I've got like a basic mixture here, but then on all the outer areas, this is looking a little bit more purple, a little bit more blue there, and we've got a little bit warmer grays there. So I'm going to try to keep it that way. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit from that blue. And again, just a little tiny bit of color, because you don't want to completely cover everything because it's snow. Basically, we're just trying to cover the shadow areas. See, like now I'm going to come over and I'm going to pick up just a little bit of yellow and drop that in there. And then I'm just taking the tip of my brush and just touching and kind of pulling it around. Now I'm going to kind of head over more towards this bluer area. Hold on, let's get that a little bit lighter. Okay, let's see. Let me start over in this back one. And it doesn't take very much. See, I just dropped a little bit in there, rinsed my brush, and I just blotted my brush, and then I'm just kind of pulling it around. Maybe a little bit more blue. I just want to make sure that we can distinguish, I can distinguish those little layers. I'm just going to come over here and pull this around a bit. That's pretty. I like that. Okay, it's a little bit more right in this crevice here, and more water. I didn't have enough water on my brush. And then pull it down and a little bit more. And there. So now we've got some color on our snow. And then I'm gonna let it dry, and then I'll make a little edge right there so it looks like we've got some snow that's piled. Yeah, okay. I'm just gonna soften this just a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry. Do I need to? No, I don't need to let that dry. Okay, so now what I want to do is what do I want to use? Do I want to use my number 8? I mean, this is going to depend on how big your snowman is. Mine's about 8 by 8. Maybe a little bit smaller than that. Okay, so here's where it's going to come in, where I want to make sure. Okay, so here's the thing you want to do. If you just mix a big solid area of gray, that's all you're going to see. I mean, when you think about it, we're going to put grays in the background, and then it's snow. The only thing that really has color are the mittens and his little scarf and his little arms. So try to make sure that your grays have some color in them. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick a little bit of that blue, and I'm going to pull it over here. I don't know if I'm going to want to use if I'm okay with this number 8. I am not. I'm going to go back to my number 6. Okay, and I'm taking my wet brush, and I'm just touching, letting that color pull around. And if you hold it a little bit sideways, then it will kind of skip over the texture a little bit. So now that I've got that, what I want to do is, and I can wait. Sometimes you can get some really interesting effects if you wait just a little bit and let it sink in. And then you can go like along the edges like there. Let's see, I'm going to add a little bit more yellow to this. And a little bit of red in this gray right here. A little bit more yellow. There, now I've got kind of a brownish gray. So then I can take and just touch the side. Just move it around just a bit. I just want it to stay kind of loose. Now I'm going to take some of this blue, some of this purple, and I'm going to stick it over here in that corner. there, maybe a little bit more blue. Now I'm going to add some of the yellow so I can get more of a greenish kind of a... Okay, let me hold this up. Look at how pretty that is. That's absolutely not a boring gray. I'm going to grab this one. There. So now I've got more of a greenish shadow. So then I can take that and I'm going to sweep it right along the bottom here. And then I'm rinsing my brush. Just slightly pulling the color inward. I'm going to add a little bit more blue to that shadow there as I'm coming down this side, maybe a little bit more. And then again with my brush. Now I want to get it to look a little peachy. This is just a good way also to practice different grays. Like now it's a little bit more, I'm going to add a little bit more red in there and a little bit more yellow. I'm going to smooth some of this out. Trying to keep the shape too. I think it makes a big difference when you add in color. Like that could even be a little bit more. So I'm going to keep adding a little bit of yellow and a little bit more red till I get a good peachy gray. So you can see that just a little bit of that blue mixed in with that red and the yellow over the side. It's very unsaturated, so it's really leaning towards gray, and that looks really good. I like that. Now I'm going to go back up here, down along the side, and then just moving my brush around again. Maybe a little bit more of that greenish gray right down here. And then I'm going to soften these areas. I think I'm going to add a little bit of that peachy gray up on the top there. And then just skipping right over the top. Needs a little bit more dark around the edge, but I didn't have that dry enough and it bled over into the snow. The whole thing is snow. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit, and then I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to take my number 2, and I want to add, I don't know if my number 2 is going to be too small. Probably is. That way you can see it looks like he's just sitting in a little area of snow. There we go. Maybe a little bit right over here too. Yeah, maybe a little bit more of that yellow or the peachy gray. Okay, I think that looks pretty good so far. Let's see, get some of this water off my paper. So can you see how my little dots, they're starting to really become translucent? So they are almost dry. In fact, I'm going to go turn my heater up a little bit so these will dry faster. I can't wait to get the background. That's what I really wanted to start Wouldn't this make a great Christmas card? I know it's kind of late. I wish I would have really thought about this at the beginning of the month. Okay, let me hit it with a hairdryer real quick. I know I always say you're not supposed to dry masking fluid with a hairdryer, but it's mostly dry. I think if I stay far away, I'm okay. And it will give everybody a chance to catch up. Okay, so if you're noticing your grays are getting too flat, stop and make sure that they're separating a little bit on your plate. And just try not to overmix them. Okay, so before I get started in that background, I want to get his body finished. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my number 4 now. So this is just nothing serious, but still, I think the colors of shadows matter. Like you notice as you go up into his face and his little snowball in the center here, the shadows they're changing a little bit. Now they're a little bit more yellow and red because that's the color of his cute little hat and his little scarf. So I'm going to grab some of that color and I'm going to go right under. Oh, should I? Hold on here. Let me erase that line. It's just too dark. Okay, just this one right here, and let's get rid of that. And then there's like a little tiny shadow around the buttons on the bottom too. And his little arm. Okay, so let's add a little bit more red here. Oops, yikes. Okay, that was a lot of red. Oh no. Well, that's okay, because I'm gonna need a lot more color when we go to do the background. Just pull it over. See how I'm just kind of pulling it around? Let's see what we've got with that. Let's drop some in. That's so pretty. Look at that gray. That's gorgeous. That's so much prettier than just a Payne's gray or a Davies gray. And then you can come back and I'm gonna drop a little bit more blue in there. So this is what you should be doing with your grays. Practice a little bit on something. Look at how gorgeous that is. You can even add a little bit more yellow right down, and look at how that it's pushing some of the other colors away. That's beautiful. You can even add a little bit. Let's add a little bit more right there. That's so pretty. Okay. I'll get this little dot right there. Okay. So now I'm going to take some of this, some of my, oh, look what I did. Yikes. I gotta be a little bit more careful. Okay. So now I'm going to come up in the corner here. And then I'm rinsing my brush so I don't get it too dark. And then I'm just going to go around this little stick arm. And then I'm going to pick up some of this greenish. It was a little too dark, so I'm going to pick some of it up. I'm going to use my paper towel here and just pick some of that color up. And let's add a little bit more right up in there and a little bit more down there and some of the green, and I'm just going to let it touch and kind of blend. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more red to this. And then I'm going to pick up I just added some yellow on my brush. just touching. It's a little bit more red. Let's get a little bit more red and yellow in this area right here. I'm going to pull just a little bit of that over. Let's see what that does. Very nice. Maybe a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. So now I'm just moving my brush along. Oh. Let's just lighten that up a little bit. Oh, his little body's looking so cute. Okay. Okay, so that little area, okay, so I'm letting that kind of set right there. I could go under here and let's add a little bit. So now I'm going to take this area over here and I'm going to add a little bit more color right under the top part of his body. And actually I'm going to pull that all the way across and just soften it. So I've got my brush in the water, pulling it around and softening. And let's go, I'm going to grab a little bit of that green, go right along the edge here. Now I'm just softening it with my brush. And I'm going to do the same thing right over here, just add a little bit more color. And then I'm just kind of flattening my brush. And I'm going to grab more blue, go a little bit more right under that edge. Now I'm rinsing and softening. I think I can even make a little crevice in there. Oh, yeah. And you know what? Right along this edge, it's a little bit darker too. So right over that pink that I did, the kind of pink gray, I've got a little bit more gray there. And I'm going to go back to the yellow and red colors here. I'm going to put them, needs more red. I'm going to go with more red. Okay, so I'm rinsing my brush, but I didn't blot it so that I can just soften that color. I can even put a little bit more yellow underneath there. So I'm just dropping in some yellow. Move that around. Just trying to shape it a bit. And let's get a little bit more right under here. Okay. So far, so good. I might have to make some more of that green. I'm just gonna add another little bit more of a shadow around this area. Just pulling the color with water. Okay. So far, it's looking pretty good. I think I'm gonna pick up a little bit of this yellow and red. Go right under that snow, little snow hilly area right there, and just smooth it out. It looks like it's in the background, and maybe a little bit more on this side. So we've got depth. And let's see, I'm gonna put a little bit more right there. Maybe a little bit more right on the edge here. Okay. So for his face, I'm not going to worry about his little carrot nose or his eyes, because by the time I make those darker colors, it's going to cover up any of the underlying colors I put down. Okay, so I'm going to come over here. See, so let's get some of this gray. Actually, let's get a little bit of that brown. Let's lighten that up a bit. Okay. So I'm going to go right under his little cap. Add a little bit more blue. Okay, and I'm just ignoring his little eyes. Lift some of that color in the center. And now he's got kind of rosy cheeks, so I'm going to add a little bit more red back into the shadow, and it's all my colors are sinking that direction. So maybe a little bit more pink in there. All right, I think that's good. This is going to make it a nice peachy rose color. Perfect. It's not too red. This is if I were to just use the magenta. So I just took that magenta and put it over there. Let that yellow kind of flow into it, and of course some of the blue's flowing in, so now I've got a beautiful, almost like a carnation pink. That's really pretty. Okay, so I'm going to grab some of it before it starts disappearing. Okay, just got a little on the paper, and now I'm rinsing my brush and just tapping around it so I don't want it to spread too far. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here. And again, just kind of moving it around. I feel like it's not quite red enough. So I'm just lifting some of the color, and then I'm going to go over and pick up just a very watery red. A little bit more right over there. And I'm going to let that dry. Or not quite dry all the way, because then I want to go and put a little brown shadow on the side of it. Let's lift a little bit of that. There we go. Okay, now I'm just going to pick up some gray, go right along the bottom of his little face. And just kind of smooth it out a bit. Smoothing that out a bit. Aw, he's looking so cute. And my masking fluid is pretty much dry. I'm going to hit it once again. I'm going to let these dry a little bit longer, and I'm going to take my number 2. Because I want to do his little eyes and his buttons and his little mouth. So I'm going to take some blue. Actually, let's make sure I've got a nice dry spot, so I can make a really dark black. So I've got some of that fresh phthalo blue. So I'm going to mix a purple again first. And I'm going to add a little bit of the red in there. So I've got a nice dark purple. If you have a hard time making those darkest values, make sure your paint, you've at least spritzed it really good with water so it gets thick, or that you've put fresh paint out. See like how my yellow is now? It's almost back to just like it's right out of the tube, just from how much water I've put over there. So now I'm going to drop in a little bit of that, and there we go. Now I've got a nice dark value, but I just don't think it's dark enough, so let's check it. It seems pretty dark, but I think it needs more of the blue. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more blue. Okay. Maybe even a little bit more red. Now let's see how it looks. Did I turn it too purple? No, I think that's good. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. So that I don't just make these black spots that are sitting right. This looks like I just drew some black circles. I'm going to wet it. And I'm going to wet this one too. I'm going to give it just a sec to sink in. Okay, now I'm going to pick, oh, more blue. Okay, and now I'm just going to drop it on the top. And I'm going to touch it with a little bit of water. Actually, let's add a little bit of yellow back to that again. Okay, now let's drop some in there. Yeah, that's what it needed. Needed just a little bit more yellow. It never ceases to amaze me. It's like you're thinking yellow, it's so transparent, it's not going to do anything until you add it back into the color, and then bam, it just turns a solid black. Okay, I'm going to flip them over. I'm going to drop just a little bit of water right onto that little button there. And okay, so now I'm going to get in his eyes. So same thing, just going to put a little bit of water on first. And then his little mouth. Okay, and now I can pick up some of the black I made. That's not dark enough yet, but I'll let that sink in. Okay, let's turn it. This is going to be so cute. Okay, let me get a little bit more blue in there. There we go. See how much better it is when it's not solid? So I'm gonna zoom in. It's like if you have a problem and you're doing this, you're just taking that dark value, and if you just do this, and you try to make the circle and completely fill it in, it just looks like a dark black circle. But if you just make sure that there's, even in the littlest, tiniest spots, like look at his little eyes, there's a little bit of a highlight right towards the top. It's like even on this one, I can drop in just a little bit more of that dark value, and then it looks like it's got some shape. It just doesn't look like you just cut out a black circle and stuck it on there. And then not trying to make your circles look perfectly round. I think that helps too. Okay, he's looking good. Put it on a napkin. Okay, what do I want to do now? I don't think I want to do any more on the rest of them till I get that background in. So far, I think I'm pretty good. I'll just stop here, let everybody catch up. We'll just give it like 5 minutes or so. 10 minutes. Oh, I know what I could do. I could do his nose. Let's do his nose. Okay. Let's see. Let's pick all this color up and drop it in there. I didn't want to waste that. Oop. Okay, so I've got a nice clean spot. Oh, and I need clean water. Okay, so I'm going to use my number 2 again. And I'm going to take some of the red and the yellow. And since I've got those grays there, I don't know if they're going to be thick enough, but I can make the little shadow around his nose. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of water. And give it a second. And my orange is pretty thick here. Okay. It's running right along the bottom there. And just pulling downward. And then it kind of gave that, you know, the little, I don't know what you call them, the little lines and carrots. Let me move in a little bit. So I just put the orange down, and then I went this direction and pulled it so it made those little lines. So now I'm going to give it another second. Actually, yeah, I'm going to give it a second. Instead of trying to use this gray, which is too thin to make a dark value, I'm going to give that a second, let it sink in a little bit more, and now I'm going to come over, I'm going to take some of the blue, and I'm going to add it back into that orange. A little bit more. And a little bit more red. A bit more yellow. A little bit more blue. Okay. I think I've got a pretty good dark brown. So let me add a little bit more red. I keep going overboard, but I think that's a good, let's see, I think it needs more yellow. But that's a pretty good brown. I think that'll be fine. I just want to get a little dark color right around the edge. And so then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my brush and just kind of pull it downward. And a little bit right there on the tip. That's so cute. I'm gonna throw, I don't want to mess it up, but I'm gonna throw a little bit of yellow in there. Yeah, that looks good. All right. Let me, picking up just a tiny bit of blue, making it just a little bit darker around the edge. Okay, and then I can pick up some of the shadow color now in some of these grays. So let's just let's blend these back together, and I'm still going to stick with my my number 2, and then just a little tiny bit right under his eye. So I put just a little bit. Now I'm blending it out just on the little edge of his eye, and I'm going to do the same thing over here, just a tiny bit, and then I'm just going to smooth it out so he's just got a little tiny bit. I might have to wait till the carrot is done drying, like a little bit more red there, and a little swipe of color. Oop, that had too much blue in it. Oop. Right under his mouth, the little coal pieces in his mouth. Just a tiny bit, and then we have to do that to his nose, but because his nose is the reddish, I'm going to come over and pick up from this area, and right around the edge of his nose. So I just rinsed my brush, and I'm softening. Now I'm going to rinse it again and blot my brush, and just kind of touch it and blend it out. Might need a little bit more color. Might need a little bit more red right under there. And now that my eyes are dry, let's put some more of that color towards the bottom. Yeah, I think that looks good. Just gonna put some of that brown right over the top, so those are just a little bit darker. Okay. His little nose is so cute. This is so fun. Okay, I'm gonna pick up a little bit more shadow color. Now I'm putting another layer. And I'm letting that one build on the top. So now I'm just wet my brush and just pulling that around. Now we can see all the different shadow layers underneath of it. So while I've got my mix over here, I'm just gonna pick some up and I'm gonna go, oh, I wish I would have softened that line, that shadow line. Maybe a little bit more, because it's gonna go right under the edge of his little hat. Okay, and now I'm just gonna soften a bit, again with a clean brush. And then I'm gonna come over here to some of this blue. And I'm just gonna come around with some blue. And a little bit on this side. Okay, I think it's gonna be good. Okay, I'm gonna dry it, and then I want to go ahead and get the background in. So for the background, I think I have my nice big Cheap Joe's Dragon's Tongue. I'm sad that I might not ever be able to get these again since he's gone out of business, but I think I'm going to use this because it's going to hold more water than, so I'm doing the exact opposite of what I normally do. So I'm going to take these grays that I've made, and I'm going to set this brush aside for just a second. And I'm going to get a number 6 so I can mix the color and it doesn't get all stuck in that giant brush. And then we're going to test this color. Oh, I guess I can flip that over. Okay, so now we got some blue in there and it's moving around with those yellows and reds. So let's see what we come up with. That's pretty gray, but I want it to be a little bit bluer. So now I'm going to mix in some of that blue. Now let's see what it does. I think it needs more. Yeah, I like that. It's very subdued and it looks close to the image, which you kind of want to keep it blue. You know why? Because we've got his little orange nose, and even though we've got reds and browns, these nice blues are going to be a good contrast to his little orange nose. I could have actually even made that a little bit oranger, and I think I will once I get the background in. Okay, so I got the colors. I think that's what I want. If it's not, I can just pick more up. And I'm going to start with, so my brush here is really wet and soaked with water. And I don't know if I'm going to need more, but I'm going to start up in the corner. So now I just rinsed my brush. And I'm just pulling that color around. And I want more blue now, so I'm going to let some of that blue move into the center. And maybe this brush isn't going to be a good brush. I don't know. Maybe it's going to have too much water. I'm not one for these natural hair brushes. So I'm going to put that down and I'm going to go back. I'm going to use my number 12, my synthetic brush. Oh, I didn't, I completely went over his little mitten. Okay, let's pick some of that up. It's not going to matter on his little, on the branch, I meant to go around that. I don't think it's going to matter much, though. It's just a tiny amount. I'm going to skip some areas, and then I'll put the darker color in those areas. And it doesn't matter if you start getting blossoms, that's just going to make it look kind of interesting. So I'm just kind of going around his head, his little cap. I'm going to pull some more blue in there. And I covered up a little bit of his little pom-pom on his head. Okay, so I'm going to go around. Let's put a little bit more color over there. Now I'm going to dip my brush in a little bit of water. And just kind of pulling it around. A little bit more water. This time I'm going to try to stay away from his little mitten. Let's see, I'm going to pull it around. You can go over the branch, because that's going to be that dark brown, and it needs all three colors anyhow. So I'm going to rinse my brush. Just going to pull it around the little mitten handle. So this is the first layer. I'm even going to go right over the little fringe. More water. Make sure you have plenty of water in your brush. And then keep switching back and forth between water and color. Okay. So I'm just going around the little snowbank. So it's not dark enough yet. So we'll get to that once we finish this first wash. So more water. Yeah, that hardly, once I lifted it up, it's hardly in the mitten at all. So I'm going to turn it a little bit. Okay, so that's the first layer. But see, the snowman's not really standing out. So I'm going to make it a little bit darker. Whoops. Okay. I'm going to give this a second. Yeah, I'm glad I switched brushes. Let's see, let's go right over that area. And right along there. Okay, now I'm going to pull in more of the blue. Okay, and let's see what we've got. That looks pretty good. I think I'm going to pull a little bit more in there. But I think what I am going to need is just a tiny bit of the red. Let's move that around. There we go. So just toned it down a little bit. So that one looks a little bit more like a bluish green, and that That's about the gray I want. Just a little tiny bit of that red in there. A little bit more blue. Okay. So I'm going to turn, you know what, I need to let this dry just a little bit more because it's lifting up right here. Okay, that's a little bit flatter. It's not completely dry. That's okay though, because I want to get some nice, interesting patterns. So I think I'm going to start on this side. I'm just going to put my brush down, all the way down, and now I'm going to rinse it a little bit. Rinse it some more. So boy, there's a lot of water in that brush. Hold on here. So right over, that was a little bit of a challenge. Trying to get around his little mitten there. And oops, let me come back over right around. There we go. So now I can drop a little bit more color right there. Now I'm going to rinse my brush completely. And I'm going to come back up here. Now I'm just smoothing it out with some water. And I want a little bit more color in this area. So I'm just using the point. What am I using? My number 12. There we go. That's what it needs, is it needs that darker value. See, and I'm just letting it kind of feather out. Now I'm going to grab some water. Now I'm going to rinse my brush, and I'm just wicking it just a little bit. I'm going to come back right in here, drop in some more color. Okay, now I'm going to come down and around his little face. I'm going to keep turning it. A little bit darker right around his little belly right there. There, now he's really starting to stand out. A little bit of water. And then I'm pulling the color down a bit. Just touching those little places that I left out, but that's okay. This needs to come out more this way so it doesn't look like it's only just as a halo. I don't want that. And a little bit more, let's see, let's get some more blue and a little bit more red. Now let's move this over a bit. And this little area. And let's pull it down towards the snowbank. So that snowbank really stands out. Just kind of moving it around. And get some water on my brush and then just let this blend out. See, that little area right there is, I guess that's okay. That's all right. I'm not gonna over worry that, okay? So now the same thing. And I'm running out of color. Okay. Get some red over there, and I need a little bit of that yellow. More red, more blue. Probably did too much yellow. Okay, let's see. Oop, that's pretty dark. And I'm right in the middle of it. Can I add more blue? I think I can. there we go. And a little bit more of the red. Let's see what we've got. Okay, I'll just have to go lightly with my brush. There we go. A little bit more water. Try to move around his little mitten. I'm going to take some of that and drop it right here. And now back over here. I'm going to rinse my brush so there's just water on it. And I'm wicking it just a bit. Oh, and I covered up the little loop on his mitten. Let's fix that little area. And again, I just went right over his little scarf. And then we'll dry it and see how it looks. I'm rinsing my brush again. Just going to move it around a bit. That looks better right there. And I think I'm going to do, with this darker color, just a little bit right in this area. Just moving it around a bit. And a little bit more down in this area, and let's pull that across. I don't know, that just feels better to me. A little bit under his mitten. And then we can pull off the masking fluid. We'll see how it looks. Oop. I like that. I think I want a little bit more flow down in this area. Okay, I'm going to dry this. Okay, I'm just going to stop for a sec because I see a couple things I want to do. I want to take my number 4 and let's see, I want to come over into this area right here, and I'm kind of making a little bit of that greenish shadow again. And then I'm going to go right here. Oh, I missed that part of his background. So I'm just giving a little bit more color to the side there. I'm going to take a little bit more of this yellow and magenta, and I'm just mixing it in to try to get that kind of a brownish color again. Okay, now I've wicked my brush. Actually, my brush is small, so probably don't need to. There, it's just got a little bit more value right there. And let's add in just, oops, wait. And a little bit more, let's see, right down in this part. And then there's some water, a little bit of water on my brush. Okay. So I'm going to dry this again, and then I'm going to pull off all of the masking fluid. And then we'll do his little arms. Okay, I think it's dry enough. Let me get a little rubber pickup. Wow, that masking fluid came off really well. And as I'm going over, I'm like, uh-oh, some parts are still a little cool. I wanted to get more of the blossom areas. You can see I got a little bit right there. If you can get that, that's what's going to make it really look really good. I'm never good at that. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, okay, so I've got that gray there. So I'm going to take, okay, so basically that's what I've got right now. So I want to turn it brown because I don't want to waste that paint. So I want to do his little arms. So I'm going to take the red and the yellow, and now I've got brown. It's a little bit of a greenish brown, and I want it to have more red in it. So let's drop in more red. And let's kind of pull this brown over there. Now let's see. That looks pretty good. I think I'm gonna add a little bit more of the red and a little bit of the blue. Darken it up again. Okay, I'm gonna leave it just like that. And I'm gonna put that number 6 down, and I'm gonna use my number 2. And we're gonna do his little arms, his little stick arms. Okay, how do I want to do this? I think I'm just going to pick the color up and put it on there, and then add water. So is that what I want to do? I want his arms to feel like they've got some shape, so scratch that. I'm going to actually just take water, and I'm going to put the water on first. Okay, and all the way down. Okay, and I'll just give it a second. And let's pick up some of that brown and try it. Oh, I completely missed the center of the little branch. Okay, now I'm going to get some of the brown. I'm just putting it right towards the bottom. And I still think it needs more red. But isn't that cool? It just kind of, it just kind of rounded, it's almost like it just rounds off the stem. Okay, now let's see. I'm gonna wick my brush so I don't have too much color on it. And actually, I think I'll even come into the background a little bit. I'm going to pick up red. I'm going to drop red in there. And I'm also going to grab some yellow. And then water, because I don't want it to be solid. Oh, duh. Somebody should have said something. This arm goes all the way in. Okay, now I gotta try to find some drier color and blend that little area right there, because that won't be dark enough and we'll see it. And then I'll put a little shadow under his arm. Okay, now I'll go ahead and I'm going to turn this a little bit so I can get it right on the side. That might have already, yeah, that dried. That already dried. So I'm just going to take a little bit of water. And then enlarge that a little bit. Some more brown.